All right, good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of Sofa Safari. There's a few things that are different about this morning. For one, I have one of my good friends, Mr. Glen Matabula, back from essentially what feels like retirement at this point in time. But he is a heavyweight boxer, so it is good to have him back from retirement. I hear Mike Tyson's coming out of retirement soon, and that's kind of the same thing. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have Glen back. He's one of our local Shangan trackers, and he is phenomenal at his job. So it's nice to have someone back on the bonnet there that we can rely on. It's not just me and Chad sort of fumbling around and hopefully finding things. So yeah, good to have you, Glen. Welcome back. And the reason why Glen's looking around is because there are some elephants moving around the area, which is why we were coming here. We wanted to introduce you guys or say good morning with some elephants behind me. But they've kind of moved off into the bush here, so we'll try find them. Don't worry, we'll get them on camera. And then sitting behind Brit, I'm going to pan to them now. We've got some very special ladies sitting at the back here. We've got Suzanne from Classic Portfolio and her two beautiful girls, Beatrice and Alexandra. And they are wonderful little girls. They're full of giggles. They're making me laugh every couple of minutes here. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you guys, so welcome. Suzanne has worked with Tula and with Don and Nina Scott, the owners of Tula, for many years now. And she sort of helps us. She's kind of like a guru of marketing and all these things that are out of my scope of view. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you guys. So please feel free to ask questions. And I promise, well, actually, I don't make any promises about elephant dung and impala dung and things like that. So we're going to have some fun, girls, okay? Yay, I see a thumbs up. Anyway, so yeah, guys, let's catch up with the elephants. Let's see if we can get a cool sighting, and then we'll see what else the morning brings. Stick around. So before we get to our elephants, I wanted to just quickly refresh everybody's, all of our viewers' minds, but also to test the young ladies at the back of the vehicle, who I have no doubt know exactly what's been going on with this tree. So before we get to the elephant, let's have a quick look at this tree. And now what I'm going to do is bring a little bit of the tree to you. That looks like a good piece, right? But what we're talking about is this damage that's been caused to the tree here. And I'll bring a bit of this stuff too that we can just peel off nicely. The tree in question is called a knobthorn acacia, which is a very nutritious tree out here, and it's obviously called an acacia, so that means that it has thorns and all sorts of things that can hurt you, and it also has these knobs on the bark that protrude there and here and there all over the show. As the tree grows older, they lose those knobs, but funny enough, the knobs you can actually break off, and you can grind them up and stew them into a tea and drink that, and it's actually a natural painkiller. So yeah, it can help you with your headaches, and I think more traditionally would have been used for things like menstrual cramps, interestingly enough. But yeah, what we're going to be talking about is what's done this to this tree and why. All right, so for those of you that have seen this episode or this show before, I have spoken about it very early on in Sofa Safari, so you'll know what this is called. But girls, what's done this? Elephants. Did your mom tell you before?
No. Well,
so you
but then
obviously
she
knew.
said yes, and then that's when I was sure.
All right, fantastic. So it's an elephant, and why is he doing it?
To get the fluffy stuff.
To get the fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
Is this the fluffy stuff?
Yes.
All right. So you guys will, one of these days, because you're going to grow up very quickly, one of these days you'll start doing biology in school, if you haven't already. All right. And you're going to learn all about trees and how trees transport water and nutrients up the tree to the leaves, and then glucose back down to the roots. And this is how they do it. It's a layer called the cambium layer. All right, that red stuff there, you're welcome to take a little bit. You can try eat it if you like. Doesn't taste very nice, but elephants love it.
Did you had a headache? These are some.
Yeah.
Last
Anyone's got a headache?
no.
Let me know. So yeah, that's what the elephants are going for, and unfortunately the bark is peeled off as a byproduct. All right, so they'll dig their tusk in, and if you have a look at the tree, you can actually see those white gouges into the heartwood, and that's where the elephant's tusk dug in there and peeled this nice piece of bark straight off the tree. And then the elephants, with their very tactile trunk, will actually use the tips, because remember, it comes down into like a finger and a thumb, their trunk, and as soon as we see some close up, I'll show you. And that will just grab there, and then they peel that off like your spaghetti last night. You guys remember that? Yeah. And that's what they're trying to eat, that beautiful red cambium layer, full of nutrition. It contains two different cell types that we call xylem and phloem. For all of you that do biology at home, or did biology at home, I'm sure the light bulb just went on. I'm sure you remember that from biology class. But yeah, xylem and phloem are found within this layer, and those two cell types are responsible for the transportation of water and nutrients up and down. They're basically gravity-defying cell types. Okay, so as the water gets sucked up through the roots, it then gets pulled up through those cell types in this inner bark all the way up to the leaves, where the leaves can then use it with sunlight through the power of photosynthesis to create glucose that can feed the plant. So there you go. Right, guys, and that's one of the main things that elephants like to eat. Of course, this can be detrimental to the tree because if the elephant pulls the bark off all the way around the tree, it's something we call ring barking. And that then obviously cuts the blood flow essentially from root to leaf, and the tree can die, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know if this tree is going to die. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, unfortunately the elephants have peeled off the bark all the way around. So this tree, although there's still a few leaves here, in the next couple of weeks, as soon as all of its glucose and whatever it has stored is gone, this tree will be dead. All right, so it is essentially dying already, and that's unfortunate. If there was just this much bark left running around the tree, just that much, so in other words, we still had a little bit of that transportation intact, the tree would probably live, although it would have a very stunted growth. It would take a lot longer to grow than usual. Right. Any questions? Geez, well done, ladies. Hey, all over this stuff today. Anyway, let's go actually find you some elephants. So while on the hunt for elephants, you must never forget to stop and appreciate even the smaller guys. And we have some plain zebra. And Britt just had to stop because the light is so beautiful out there this morning. And particularly when you have zebra on that green background, for all you photographers out there, it really makes quite a nice photograph when you get that beautiful white and black contrast against the green. With this stunning sunlight hitting them. But yeah, nice to see a little herd of, yeah, as I say, plain zebra. For those of you that are in the know, you'll know this was once called a Burchell zebra, but these days we are slowly renaming things, you know, a bit more appropriately, because Burchell did not in fact discover everything. Many people saw zebras before he did. But yeah, the plain zebra also makes a bit more sense because you find this animal all the way from here up until East Africa, where there's the big beautiful open grassland plains. There's very iconic areas in Tanzania and Kenya, and you find the zebra, or the plain zebra at least, migrating in their tens of thousands. It's not just the wildebeest that do it, it's also the zebra, so it is a very spectacular thing to see. But yeah, you see all the tails are going, even though it's early and still quite cool. These poor bush donkeys are, you know, for lack of a better explanation, are basically a bush horse, or a bush donkey, as I say. We also like to refer to them as disco donkeys. But because they are an equine or a horse or something of that nature, they attract a lot of flies, and so those tails are already going. You wouldn't expect there to be a lot of flies at this point in time, just because it is nice and cool. But when you're a horse, you can never get away from them. And for those of you that can remember, the zebra stripes also help ward off insects and flies. That black and white stripage kind of confuses the fly to a point where they don't really want to land on the zebra, apparently. It's not so much camouflage, it's more sort of an irritation to their eyeballs, right, their compound eyes, which see with many, many little eyes comprising one giant eye. So yeah, quite interesting that. But yeah, they're slowly heading off. We're still looking for our elephants, and we have heard a few calling far away, but we're going to wait for our other herd to push through the block behind us here, and hopefully we can get a little mock charge or something like that. Wake the girls up at the back. Maybe one will come and smell Beatrice there and pick her up. So let's see what happens. We've got a few babies around, a couple of little guys. I'm sorry, I know the light is a bit tricky, but
Gorgeous.
can I fill up? Alright, so we finally got it to a good position. I know the sunlight is not in the best place for us at the moment, but it's always a bit tricky. You don't want to just keep crisscrossing through an elephant herd, especially when there's little guys around. You don't want to upset them. This is a male. Hey. Hey. Calm down. Hey. Shut up. Um, so we spoke a little bit earlier about the peskiness of male elephants. That's an elephant bull that's a little bit older than the one we just saw. But usually you find the bulls are pretty relaxed. But as we drove in and stopped here, you could see he was just feeding on a bush over here on my right hand side, and he kind of gave us the stink eye immediately and then walked over. Either that or he just liked Glen's aftershave there. Just asking him a question where he bought it. Hey, Glen? Red Square. But yeah, nice to get into the middle of the herd. As I say, you don't want to get in between mom and babies, and you don't want to cause too much of a ruckus. The elephants in the Timbavati are beautifully peaceful. I've had the pleasure of working in a number of different game reserves now, and I can comfortably say that the elephants that frequent this area are the most peaceful elephants I've ever worked with in my life. And what you just saw with this bull giving us a little bit of grief at the front here is very, very rare. Even that sort of aggression is pretty rare. Never mind the aggression where vehicles are getting rolled and people are getting chucked around, which doesn't happen all that often. So don't worry if you're coming on safari. Safari around the Kruger National Park, please, please, please treat them with respect. These are large, beautiful, sentient creatures that deserve a lot of respect. They're also a lot bigger than you, so you know, you will come off second base. Probably going to give us a bit of grief.
Yes.
Like clockwork. The younger the elephant is, the more full of nonsense he is. So the female that's ahead of me at the moment, just in front of Glen here, if you can't see her, she's the large grey thing. She has a collar on, quite a big little pack on the back of her head, which we'll try and get in the big camera in frame for you guys. But that would suggest that this herd is understudy at this point in time. It might still be a collar that's gone flat and so on, that the guys are still coming to, or the batteries have gone flat, that they might still be coming to remove. But this is just so that they can monitor the movements of elephants and what they get up to, where they go, how often they move, and how far they move. Very, very interesting data to collect. But that would also suggest that this cow here is most probably the matriarch of this herd. So obviously you want to put a collar on the ringleader of the entire herd to make sure that wherever she goes, the rest of the herd will go. They're going to follow her. So she's the boss lady, in other words. And she is looking pregnant as well, Suzanne. If you have a look, they've kind of got that little bit of an angular thing going on.
Yep.
Elephants, when they're pregnant, they don't hang down. They don't get this fat stomach that hangs towards the ground. They grow outwards like that. So the baby is held quite high up. And of course, that's also just for safety. You don't want to be holding your baby too close to the ground, especially out here where there's lots of horrible things around in terms of hyenas and stuff like that, which very rare for hyenas to take on elephants, guys. So don't misunderstand my words, but yeah, just to give you a bit of context there. But yeah, probably put on her by an organization called Elephants Alive. I'm speculating there, but they are an elephant organization that does a lot of work out here and a lot of studies and trying to figure out how best to manage the elephant populations. And you may have heard me in a couple of episodes ago talking about how we are trying to manage elephant populations without having to resort to the horrible, horrible culling that was experienced in these areas in the 80s and the 90s in the Kruger National Park. So in other words, we need to find a way to let their populations naturally grow, but we need to also stop them from doing huge amounts of damage. Remember, elephants, they do push over trees. We spoke about it earlier, and they can lead to very rapid changing of an ecosystem. But for all those people that like to say that there's too many elephants and we need to do something about it, just remember that these ecosystems in general, and probably a good, I put it at 60-70% of the trees that you see around here, owe their lives to elephants. So if you see wherever a tree is, there was probably once upon a time elephant dung that lay there with that seed inside it. So elephants have seeded this land, and they have what we call a natural architect. They have created this environment, and why is it wrong for them to change it? They've been doing it for millions of years, so we do also need to find a way to let them naturally do what they need to do. But because we have fence lines around these areas, and there are unfortunately limitations to where we can allow elephants to move to and migrate to in this day and age with a huge and growing human population, We have to think about these things deeply and try and stop them from damaging too much of the environment, because there just isn't enough space for them to continue growing the way that they should be allowed to grow. So the best way for us to manage that is to obviously find more space and to grow and get bigger and bigger as the Kruger National Park. And that is happening. There's some very clever conservationists working across international borders to try and open up new conservation areas and to allow elephants to move into those areas. And I think the current goal of South African national parks and of this ecosystem is to try and grow to 10 million hectares in the next 10 or 20 years. At the moment, it's sitting on 4 million hectares. So if we can get it to 10 million hectares, that's huge. That'll be one of the largest protected areas on the planet. So yeah. Girls?
Yes.
What do you think with this mud or this sand on the side of the tree?
Termites.
Are you sure? Be confident.
Well, now I'm not too sure.
No, you're quite right. So good job. And why are the termites, why are they doing that?
Get a home?
To get a home? I like that. Yeah. Not quite though, not quite. Remember, they live in those big termite mounds, or they live right underground. So what do termites usually like to eat, or at least harvest? Wood, yeah? So when you see something like this growing up the side of the tree, where there's mud or sand that they've caked on there, they are basically making themselves a little shield. All right. So because of the nature of termites, they're a very translucent animal. Do you know what that means, Beatrice? Translucent. It means they're almost see-through. All right. So unlike us, where the sun can't get through our skin, with termites they're almost see-through. So the sunlight can get straight through them and actually sunburn their internal organs, so to say. All right. So they have to be very careful of the sun. And for that reason, they make themselves these little tubes and tunnels that they can then work throughout the day underneath. Okay, so if I go and tap it, and I know that they're no longer here because I can see it's not really in use, but if I go and just tap there, you'll see it's going to fall apart. See? All right. And I'll bring a little bit to you, see if I can peel a bit off. Maybe bring some right up to it. So yeah, that's what they make. All right. So it's just this little thin, it looks like a little bit of I don't know, like a choco, eh? Like chocolate, eh? Yeah. Or like an all-bran flake for the healthier people out there.
More like a cocoa pop.
Or like
One of those
like a
cocoa
flattened
things that you
cocoa pop, yeah. So what they've done is they use enzymes in their mouth, which acts like a natural adhesive, like a glue. Okay. And they put little piece by piece, that little particle of sand, and they stick it together with their saliva. Right. And slowly but surely they end up with that shield where they can then work underneath there and harvest the wood underneath. All right.
So it's a sand spit umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool, hey?
But how long do you think, if they do it one piece by piece with just a spit, then how long do you think it would take to
Well,
make
this is where the power of teamwork comes in.
Yeah.
So thousands and thousands of people, or termites working on the same thing, make a pretty quick job. And I'd probably say they can do something like that in just a couple of days, maybe a day. I don't know. I've never sat there and watched. But if you consider that maybe 1,000 termites were working there, they could probably get it done pretty quickly. Right. But this is also why termites are more active at night time, because there's no sunlight. So they can't hurt them. So they prefer to work by moonlight. But when times are tough and when they need to harvest more and more and more, they need to find a way to remain active during the daytime. And this is how they do it. They'll also make little tubes or tunnels along the surface of the ground. And we'll try to find some, but it's basically just not the size of my hand, a tiny little tunnel that runs all the way along the surface of the ground. And that allows them to move up and down as they're harvesting things and bringing it back and forth without getting affected by the sun. So very clever little creatures, aren't they? Yeah?
Super cool.
All right, good job, ladies. Ladies, get ready to see this beautiful little baby giraffe. And if you look carefully at its belly, you'll see that it still has a piece of its umbilical cord attached. All right. And that's usually an indication that that a baby giraffe is less than 2 weeks old, 2 or 3 weeks old. So that little piece of umbilical cord falls off after about 2-3 weeks. So he's still a baby. It's brand new.
Certainly not that small for a baby.
No, I mean they're like almost 6 foot tall when they're born. So yeah, and they can weigh I think about 80 kilograms.
Oh my word,
So yeah, it's a big baby. Beautiful creatures. What I find quite interesting about giraffe is watch when the baby starts to walk. It's a very unusual gait. So both left legs will take a step, and then both right legs will take a step, and both left and both right. See that?
Yes.
Which is very rare in the animal kingdom. I think camels do it, giraffe do it, and there's one or two other species. But that apparently also leads to the giraffe's scientific name, which is a camelopardalis. Right, so it's got the name camel built into its name, into its scientific name. But they're not actually related to camels, or extremely closely. I mean, they are in a roundabout way, but they're not cousins, for instance. Miss Tracker.
Thank you.
Good job. Alright, good morning, ladies and gents. As you can see, it is now the beautiful morning out in Africa. We had Suzanne and the girls on our vehicle yesterday, and as we say with the new Sofa Safari, we're trying to do more of like a highlight thing of the week. So this week's been a bit crazy, but we have managed to get out twice. This is the second time, and our lucky day, we've come across one of the Nauru males with one of the River Pride females, and he's just chilling out in the nice sun there. It's been a cold night, so I'm sure they are enjoying a bit of sunlight warming up. This is a mating pair at the moment, and I know you can't see the female, but she is lying there in the grass, believe me. This is why lions are such dodgy characters. You know, you come walking along here, and there's a very good chance you're not going to see them. So usually when you are walking in environments like this and a lion is sharing that environment with you, the only reason you know they're there is because they give you a little growl, which is not the most comforting sound to hear coming out of the long grass. But they are quite courteous, and they do warn you that they're there, and they warn you a few times before they actually try and chomp your neck. So yeah, they're quite the sportsman, if you will. But it's quite nice to see that the two of them are mating at this point in time, and we have seen them mating a few times over the last week or so, sort of just tracing each other, or him just following her around like a puppy dog, really. And the reason being is, unfortunately, if you have read my most recent Week in Photos blog, and also seen our Instagram, you will be aware that unfortunately the 6 cubs that were found within the River Pride have been whittled down to just 1 now. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that lone cub for a few days now as well, but I'm sure he's safe and sound with his mom. This is only 2 of the pride of about 7, 4 females, 3 males, and then the 6 cubs that used to be around. So yeah, it's just unfortunately one of those things that, lions, leopards, all sorts of baby animals, or all animals in general, have to deal with. There's a very high mortality rate in the early months, early years of life. And it's not an easy thing to survive out here. So yeah, very heartbreaking, considering that, myself and Britt and Foreman, Dale, Chad, we've all had the pleasure of seeing the River Pride cubs grow up over the last few months, from just being tiny little tots all the way up to, being that sort of 4, 5, maybe even 6 months old. So not very old, but it was fantastic to be able to spend time with them and to see them interacting with their moms and each other and their dads, and just playing and having fun and doing what you would presume lion cubs to do, sort of practicing for the day they turn into little killing machines. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You really have to take the good with the bad when you're working in nature and with wildlife, and not everybody's going to get to adulthood, and out here we have to learn not to get too attached, because you will end up with a heart-wrenching moment. So yeah, that 1 cub that's left, he should be afforded a lot of protection and support now by all of his aunts and his mom, and that will hopefully transpire into him making it to adulthood, or her making it to adulthood. We're not too sure if it's a male or female that survived yet. But yeah, sorry about that, folks. We're not sure what happened. It could have been hyenas that found the cubs. Very often the females will leave the cubs, stash them in a little secret place while they go off hunting. It's just not safe to have cubs moving with you while you're trying to hunt buffalo or zebra or something like that. And every once in a while, a hyena might find where you've stashed the cubs, or maybe even another lion. And this is something that occurs within the predator world, is this killing of each other's cubs, killing of each other. It's anti-competitive behavior. It's basically removing lions from the system today while you can, before they turn into big, crazy, strong, aggressive things like this full-grown male here, at a point where it's almost impossible to kill them or to remove them. So it could have even, to put it into perspective, it could have even been a leopard that found these 5 or 6 cubs and killed them one by one. So yeah, we're all speculating. There's no ways we'll ever know the full truth of what happened. But at the moment, there is only one cub left, and we will continue to bring you the River Pride story. But it's great to see these two mating. Wonderful, because we know then in hopefully 3-4 months from now, we'll have some new cubs in the system, and that's always something positive to think about. And, hopefully they have a better run at raising those cubs, and negativity doesn't befall them. So yeah, we'll keep bringing you the story of the River Pride, guys. So what's happening here, folks, is he thinks he's mating at the moment, and he very much isn't, because the female's still lying flat on his side. And it's interesting because males do this. Every time you see lions mating, males, they kind of just get so carried away with the whole thing that they try and mate with the female, even though she's not ready. But here we go, now she's lying properly. There we go, the classic rollover. So yeah, that was a positive mating session that just happened eventually. But yeah, as I say, the males do get a bit carried away, and sometimes they end up mating with the air, for lack of a better explanation. And then once the female sort of gets into it, she will assume the position. It's always interesting because once they have mated, females are very well known for rolling over onto their back. Yeah, interesting. So now they're going to go back to sleep for the day, I'm sure. Maybe move into a bit of shade. And myself and Britt are going to leave them here for the day and see what else we can find this morning. Nice to see you guys. Thanks, kitty cats. Stick around, folks. Right, so just coming into Mashutten Dam, the ever-famous Mashutten Dam. We love it. There's always a bit of activity around here. And today we have one of my favorite characters, the Bobjuns, or the Baboons, known as the Savannah Baboon. They can be quite naughty, having the intelligence that they do have, being a primate. They know very well that us as human beings have very tasty things such as sugar and cake and hot chocolate, and they do sometimes try and get into our staff accommodation and things like that. But for the most part, the baboons out here are actually pretty well behaved, and we often find them, well, not often actually, considering how many times we've seen them on Sofa Safari. But yeah, you find them just doing what they should be doing, and you can see they're all foraging here at the moment. Most of the troopers moved off to the left-hand side of the frame now into quite thick bush, climbing up the trees. So we'll see if we can get some footage of that. But you can see this one that Britt's got in frame for you now is just busy pecking around at the floor, maybe looking for some seed pods. They might also, on occasion, be digging up little grubs and insects and just things in the grass and in the soil level, looking for some breakfast. Tasty, tasty breakfast. Anyway, I can see that they moved out of frame, so let's try and get you guys back into frame. Ready? Mm-hmm. What I always find wonderful about baboons is the longer you spend time with them, the more you start to realize that each one of them is completely individual to each other. So yeah, there's kind of the saying that if you sit long enough with baboons, you will eventually see every member of your extended family. And it's kind of true. You start to see who the troublemakers are, who are the guys that dish out the I guess the punishment when the little ones get a little bit too rowdy. You get to see all the girls sitting together having a cup of tea and talking a bit of gossip about the troop around the corner. It's always quite fun to spend some time with them. As I said, this morning a little bit chilly, so they're just all out in the sun, feeding and foraging. It's quite frustrating for all of us here because when we do find baboons, they're very cautious of us in the vehicles. But I was just remarking to Britt now that this particular troop seems to be becoming a lot more relaxed with us being around, and as long as we keep our distance and don't get too close, they kind of carry on doing what they're doing. They were all sitting beautifully out in the sun now, but obviously with us coming into the scene, they decided to move off into the trees. But always fun just to watch the babies messing around in the trees. Every once in a while they put a bit too much weight on a branch and it breaks and they fall down. But yeah, they are very good at what they do, and that's climbing. And the way that they do that is, the way that they're so good is by if you think about other primates as well, their back feet or their feet are in essence hands still. So our feet have been adapted so that we can walk upright. They're big old balancing boats, if you will. Whereas the baboons are still fully adapted for walking on all fours, and their feet still have essentially thumbs, whereas our big thumb or our foot, our big toe has basically gone forward. Their big toe is still to the side, allowing them to get great grip and to climb all over the show. But yeah, we're going to spend a bit of time with them. We're going to get some nice footage of them, and if anything crazy happens, we'll definitely try and capture it for you guys. Right, folks, so we're going to leave our baboon friends here for the day, and we're also going to leave all of you here for the day. So thank you so much for joining myself and Britt out on safari, and once again thank you so much to Suzanne from Classic Portfolio and her girls for joining us for a little bit of a drive yesterday. It was wonderful to have you ladies. So yeah, thanks for that, and we will start looking forward to next week and releasing our next episode following Sunday. And hopefully we get some cool stuff for you all during the week. Please feel free still to leave your comments, your questions, all those good things in the comments and on YouTube, and subscribe and like and all of those good things. And we'll happily come back to you, and we'll try and focus on the things that you're all looking for. But thanks for joining us, guys. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your G&Ts, your hot chocolates. I don't know what time you're watching this, wherever you are in the world. Yeah, have a great day. Cheers.